She'll introduce you. She'll set it up.
Welcome to the Courtyard. We are here today with the charming Dan Barwick.
Yes.
And
right,
Paradise Ridge.
Oh, very nice.
And my co-host is George Christie, the owner of Wine Industry Network,
Yep.
which is one of our best resources we have in the industry by far.
Thank you.
And we are also in the studio. Our producer is Michael Deloche, who is sort of joining us via my little earpiece here. So,
Yeah.
and I just want you to know, Michael has the ability to fact check and check on things. So.
Is it going to keep us honest?
I don't lie, I just bullshit.
That's fine.
Oh, man.
That's fine. And what did you just
This is a 2012 Blanc de Blanc, latest George sparkling wine through Paradise Ridge.
Delicious.
And this was on tirage, which means it was in the bottle before. It's ready to
Thank you so
present
much.
to you for 8 years. So it has a lot of those.
For 8 years?
8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. This is a fun, perfect weather
It
for
is
the
the perfect
beverage.
weather. It's starting to get warm here in Sonoma County, and so cheers, guys.
Cheers, welcome.
Good to be here.
Cheers. Good to
Cheers,
be
George.
here.
Welcome.
Good to see you, Dan.
So has all those characters that you expect from a wine that's sat on.
And it's
really
creamy.
short time.
Oh, it's delicious.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
So, you grew up in Dover,
I
correct?
was born in Dover,
Okay.
but I grew up in a little village called Ripple. So there's already a wine connection.
Ripple? That's funny.
Population maybe 300.
Wow.
There was a church, a school, and a pub. And I think by the time I was done with Ripple, more time was spent in the pub.
Ripple. and you two have known each other a long time, correct?
We've known each other for a long time. We play a lot of golf together.
We do.
My golf
We're part of the win team.
Yeah, yes. We haven't won yet,
Hillsburg
but
Industrial League. Well, I won.
you won. Yeah, you were the only one who won.
Oh, our
Yeah,
local,
it was a fun
that's our
afternoon.
local industrial league
Yes.
Yeah.
in Healdsburg. And I love the one thing I do know about you is your first wine job, I believe, was at Harrods.
It was. Yeah.
I love that.
Harrods
That's
in
awesome.
London, yeah. And that was in the early 80s. So we're going back a long way. That was old school.
Just a child.
I was just a child.
Is that where you kind of got like a little bit of the wine bug, like working there? Is
It
that-
was. I think that my first job there, they had this wonderful 6-week sort of event called Taste of France, or France as we say back there. And I was the only person that actually spoke any French that they could find. And I was sort of like a junior manager at that point.
Did you take French in high school or something?
I did. At school. I'm not sure I made high school. Anyhow. And so that was my job. And so I'd be going around for 6 weeks, and there were dozens and dozens and dozens of these growers and winery owners pouring their wines throughout the store, maybe 4 or 5 different locations on different floors. My job was to make sure that they had the wine at the right temperature, they had the right glasses as we say, and they had the right paraphernalia. So invariably I'd go up there and see, is everything okay, tout c'est d'accord? And they go, yeah, and invariably they'd pour you a glass of wine and they'd talk about their wine. So I'm doing this from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., 3 hours doing the circuit. And I'm sure there were days where I was 2 bottles down by 2 o'clock. But I was young, I was probably maybe 22.
So they would put the winemakers or the vendors
It's kind of like
throughout the store?
Like an in-store tasting, basically?
Yeah,
like,
in-store, but lots of them. And sometimes it'd be 5 or 6 of them together. So, I just wanted to make sure everything was good. And they'd stop and they'd talk about their wine, and that's where I got the germ settled in my head. And then many beers later and several girlfriends, I discovered wine. Just giving you my agenda was not wine at that point.
So you had more important priorities.
I had that was my point.
Beer and women.
Yeah, that's right. Just clarifying everybody. And that's where the germ sort of got fixed in my head. And then in 1991, I thought I'd like to come and do a harvest. So I'd already lived in Sonoma or in California for a bit prior to that, and I'd come out, do a harvest, learn a bit more about it, and put wine in part of my career. And I came here and just fell in love with it.
So did you come here specifically for wine?
I did.
Wow.
And I did a harvest, and it was 1991, which, for those that you remember, was a very, very cold vintage. And we did lots of weird stuff before the grapes came in, cleaning predominantly, all sorts of weird stuff. And then the fruit came in. It came in bad. So I think there were at least 2 weeks, so 14 days in a row, no days off.
Oh, where it's all compressed.
Boom. 14 days. We either got in at 7 or 8 a.m. and the earliest we went home was 2 a.m. for 14 days in a row. And I loved it. I thought, well, if I can pull that off and still be happy and, have a good spirit, then maybe this is good. I just love the cleaning thing,
Well, and I'm sure they were running out of fermenters, correct? That's always a problem.
I wasn't that sensitive to the fermented juggle that I am now.
So you were more manual labor?
I was a grunt, in that press at 1 o'clock in the morning and clean that out. And it was not glamorous by any stretch of the imagination. But I just had a great time. All the smells and the aromatics and all of that stuff just filled my senses. And I love this.
So you're passionate about production?
I think it's the something. I think that the senses that you're filled and all those different nuances and characters really hooked me. And since I just love it, and just love going into the winery and just smelling a winery, just makes me feel good.
Isn't it a great smell?
It is.
I don't appreciate it until I've been traveling and come back, because otherwise I don't really notice it. But you're right, during harvest, it's like the best.
It's
There's nothing.
The Valley Road, you can smell.
You can smell it. Yeah, it is. The whole region is smelling of winemaking, ferments and must and the energies buzz, and that becomes very addictive. And so I fell in love with it, really, truly. And then I worked several different harvests here in California.
Sonoma County?
Sonoma County.
Okay.
And then I was planning, I was going to the junior college and doing night classes for all sorts.
And I just want to do a little, cheer for the junior college. It's one of the top in the country.
It is.
It always has
Awesome.
been. It's an amazing school.
That was expanding and broadening my knowledge of the wine business, wine marketing and public relations in the wine.
Oh, so you took classes in a lot of marketing?
Yeah.
Wow.
And and that is where I met my wife, Sonia. And we both were in Marie Kvertz, who's a legend in public relations marketing in the wine business, and also Bill Traverso's class, which was really sort of focusing more, actually it was on marketing also, but more so tasting wines.
Bill Traverso is like a legend.
He truly is.
He's
an icon and a legend.
Absolutely.
And a wonderful man. Mm-hmm. They both laid claim to being the person that put Sonia and I together.
Oh, they do.
They do. And
well, Sonia has an impressive background.
She's from the wine making family where I now work, Paradise Ridge, which is well known locally. I'm not sure how further it is known, but
she's had some really solid marketing experience. So you two are the dream team, right? With the production and marketing. So
we won't listen. We'll go there. Huh? But yeah, we've had and then we travelled for 3 years. Went to Burgundy, France, and then to.
I like the.
Well, I have to clarify for those
France.
France.
Glosses in France.
France, and then to South Africa, and then on to Australia. So we were in Sydney for the Christmas and the New Year. I worked in a wine store in Bondi Beach called Porter's, which was incredible. It was sunny, yeah, incredible experience. Had a wonderful time. Sydney is one of the most beautiful cities. San Francisco, Seattle, maybe Cape Town, and Sydney all have that same sort of feel about them.
Yeah.
Right on the ocean, busy, very cosmopolitan, good restaurants, lots of good young people to have fun with, and then we moved on to the Barossa Valley.
Wow. Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we did, and so ended up working there, and I just had one of the best times of our lives. And we even considered moving there, or going to live there.
To Australia?
You know, in South Australia, in the Barossa Valley, we have so many great friends that are still good friends now, and we hook up now and again when we come here. I've been back there.
How long were you in Australia?
January through probably I think August.
Okay.
And then came back in August, and then I helped out for the harvest at Paradise Ridge in 1998. So I've been there since then. I was just going to help out in the harvest, and again I fell in love with the vineyards and what's going on, and I'm still there and enjoying it still.
So your intention was not to move to California?
No, and our trip, we were doing this trip, and we were intending to go to South America, but somehow we got held up in California, Sonoma County, and I've worked in some of the most beautiful places on the planet, and Sonoma County is right up there.
Well, and Paradise Ridge has one of the best views.
It is very well known. Yeah, it's a special place.
It's a very special place.
You know, we have all these wonderful sculptures, of which one is on the bottle. I don't know if you can see the bottle shot, but it's a sculpture that reads love, and I think they're.
Oh, look, there we go.
Maybe, there we are.
Yep.
And that was originally in Burning Man. The love sculpture is made out of steel, and it found its home at Paradise Ridge.
It's huge too. I mean, it's not like people like how tall are the letters? I mean, it's kind of
I'm going to say 12 feet,
yeah.
But it could be 16, it could be 10. You know.
And what is the material?
It's made out of steel.
Steel.
Yeah. So it's now all rusted, so it really fits into the background. It looks like it's been there forever.
Yeah.
And it really, after the Father Tubbs fire in 2017, which was devastating in Santa Rosa, it became one of those special icons that showed that we were still here.
And people saw that quite a bit on the news coverage.
Yeah.
It was very sad. Paradise Ridge burned in the 2017.
It burned down good.
Burned down, I know. It was really sad.
It was. I mean, I still feel a little emotion about that now, but it was. It cleaned out. So it destroyed our 2000s, most of our 16 and 17 harvest. It came in on early October, and it's one of those vintages where most everything was in before October. And so we were just winding down, and then boom, out of nowhere this thing came. And
you just got the call in the middle of the night, kind of a thing. Or?
I did. I was probably the only person heading towards the fire to see if I could do anything.
Yeah.
And I got caught up in it a little bit, and there was flames and stuff flying around. It was.
Well, and that was before. That was the first fire we had, so that was prior to there being a season or us even anticipating that something like that could happen.
Lake County and Mendocino had these seasons, but not as common as they have in the last several years.
Well, I have been impressed since that fire at the fortitude of you and the family to just keep going and keep tasting and keep showing hospitality to people.
Yeah, the priority was to build the hospitality centre. That was a focus we wanted to bring people back, and we sort of became a poster child of resurgence after the fires and resilience.
Definitely. Yeah.
And yeah.
I
Which
don't
is a
think there
good
was
reason
any.
to support Paradise Ridge.
Yeah. I don't think there was a property that was talked about more after that fire than Paradise Ridge.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, and I imagine there was how many weddings and special occasions and things that have occurred up there. It's so many great memories
for a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know we're there. And we're literally now just opening, because we opened in 19, and then Mr. COVID came along and messed with us a bit. So we're really just opening now properly since then. And
But you have a good space for outdoor tasting.
we have. It's almost the perfect place to
It
do
is.
for outdoor tasting.
Yeah,
This isn't too
perfect place
shabby
to
right
go.
here. This is
It's paradise.
yeah.
It's Paradise,
It's
that's right.
paradise up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, for anybody who hasn't had a chance to visit the property, it's just the greatest place to, especially watching the sun go down from up there. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
It's what you picture. I mean, of course, we all know that we do this every day,
That's
but
right.
it's a great place to do it every day.
It is.
Drink
it is.
wine and watch
You
the
can
sunset.
if you go there and you sit there in the evening and watch the sunset, you can capture a little bit of what it is to live in wine country.
Yeah.
And there's those special moments that wine can bring to lots of people's lives. If people have a special moment, maybe dinner, falling in love, or that magic moment, very often wine is part of that experience.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And that's what makes wine so special. It's to use a commodity that no other commodity really has. Perhaps music can reach you to the way that wine can. Is that you remember a special song can bring back that moment you have. Wine can also do that, and I think that's what makes it extraordinary to be in this business and have that sort of connection with so many people. We make these wines, and every bottle of wine we make, somebody drinks, and that's an experience that hopefully, one or more people. Most of them come in single serving size, so I'm never quite sure, but it really is. And that's why we work so hard and diligently to make every bottle the best we can, so that experience is flawless.
Well, your wines have always been fantastic. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
This is delicious.
It's really good.
Yeah, George is drinking.
Don't drink it too much, you guys.
I'm going to save some for you. Oh, it's delicious.
And I'm going to pop it back in ice before it. You want a freshener?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Let me.
George needs some.
Okay.
So Chardonnay grape, we made it ourselves, so we did the work at the winery, and then we did the primary fermentation ourselves, and then put it into glass at the winery, and then it was, as I said, in storage en tirage for 8 years, and then we had it disgorged, I think, last year. Yeah, last year, I believe. All the years get a little bit muddled down.
And are you riddling it?
I didn't beat no riddling for this guy. But it was riddled. I wonder where they came up with that, huh? Is it a French word?
Well,
Riddle?
you should know. You're the Harrod's fluent French person.
Yeah, but I think. Well, anyhow, a good little thing for you guys out there. Work out where the word riddling came from. Riddle. R-I-D-D-L-E.
Oh, yeah,
Fact check.
our
There we
that's
are.
right, we have a fact checker. Mr. Deloche.
Was that the plan? 8 years, like right out, or did you?
Well, we wanted to make a lake. We I think it was 3 separate bottlings of that vintage, and the idea was to make a wine exactly like this. And we didn't know it was going to be that long. We made a boatload of it, and so here we are enjoying it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And I assume this is something people can order from your website.
they can. prwinery.com will get you there.
PR Winery?
prwinery.com gets you to our website, and you can order all sorts of a whole plethora of different wines that we make.
How many wines do you make?
I don't know. Lots. They keep trying to tamper me down. They go, we're making too many wines, stop it. And then they go, we're not going to do this, not going to do that, not that. And I sort of pitch it to them, maybe we should make this because this is an opportunity.
Is it more like vineyard-specific decisions that you're making, or are they just different blends?
Pretty much everything is vineyard designate, and then I find these special vineyards, and so we made a Grenache Blanc from Roquepart, which I work.
I did too last year.
Oh, Gary?
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that good?
It's so good.
Yeah. So the only reason we got that is I got nixed with the Grenache.
Let's look at
They said
a map.
enough.
Michael said we could look at a map and
Oh.
see where.
It's
Very
in
nice.
yes.
So do
Top
you want to describe?
Northwest corner. Roquepart is an AVA that was given its designation in 2002. It is really one ridgeline that starts in the top of Dry Creek and goes all the way almost to the Mendocino border. The vineyard, the Gary Brannan's vineyard, is closer to Mendocino in civilization there than it is here. You're off grid.
I don't have any of these facts. I'm really impressed.
It's off grid. I can tell you. All
I know is to go to Lake Sonoma and turn right.
Yeah, sort of.
Go over the bridge.
Go over the bridge.
Keep going.
Yeah, and it's a long ways
It's
out.
It's a really long way out.
Yeah. So if you're going up there to look at the vineyards, I'm burning most of my morning, and depending on how long I want to spend in the vineyard and just sort of breathe it in, it could be mid-afternoon.
No, it's quite a trek. In fact, I was Jeff Mayo and I were both getting fruit from there, so at least we had each other. We'd
Yeah, I like to say that
it's a long
you
way.
go through gates and little woodlands and through streams, and it really is enchanting. And on that little major point I'd like to make, you are not top of the food chain when you're up there.
You're not
Top of
Apex, not the Apex
No.
winemaker.
So you can be lunch.
Yeah, and you want 4-wheel drive.
You do, yeah.
And you also don't want them to lock any of the gates while you're in the vineyard.
You have to know the combos. They're all combinations, and it's if you forget the combination, it can be very frustrating. One time I forgot my reading glasses, and I couldn't see.
Oh no!
And so I had the car, and I had to drive the car up super close to the lock so I could work it out.
It's one of those locks that has the like all the.
It has a tumbler
thank you.
lock system where there's lots of different locks.
The things we have to do to make good wine. It's crazy.
There used to be locks on all those gates. But
There are 3 lock gates you have to get through to get to the vineyard.
Yeah.
It is. It's a commitment.
Yeah, I love going up there. It's just wonderful.
It is beautiful.
And at about 1,400 feet, there's a year-long street.
Yeah.
And if you walk down there, there's these pools, and I've been up there, and on my way back down, I've dived into one of these pools in the morning, just freshen up and get moving.
Now, do you make a rock piles in as well?
We do. We're heavily committed to rock pile.
And rock pile is arguably the most premier area for Zinfandel in Sonoma County. I think.
You're not going to see me argue with that. It is a very special place, and it's mountain fruit, the wines do, whatever varietal you're using, do have a similar thread of what we like to call minerality, but minerality comes in different guises, and it's very, very difficult to pinpoint what that exactly is, But it's not fruit, it's not acid, it's not oak, it's not.
Just a mouthful of deliciousness.
It is, and it just uplifts everything. And the wines there are so intense and concentrated that all you really need to do is step out of the way and let the fruit do its thing.
That's a good way to describe it. I think it's true. You know that from winemaking. You're right. Sometimes you have to just let
some
stay
things you
away.
work a little harder than others. Yeah, but it's my winemaking philosophy is to try and be as honest about the vineyard as you can. Sometimes it needs a little moving in one direction or the other, and then pick it when it's just ripe enough. So let's give you a sort of analogy of that. You can have that first peach of the season, and when you bite into it, you get to that towards the stone, and it's a little hard and really quite acidic, almost makes your eyes water. It's that acidic. The other peach at the end of the season, you bite into it, and it slops down in front.
That's such a great analogy.
Thank you. We troll in that first peach territory, so you have less sugar, much more acid. So you end up with a lower alcohol, higher acidity wine, which is really perfect for preparing food, and more sort of old world in style.
Well, plus then obviously you're not doing as many acid additions, so you're being
Very few.
So you're being very non-manipulative of the.
Honest. Well, winemaking is all about being honest.
You talk a lot about, like when we're golfing, when we do talk about wine, which isn't that often really, we talk about wine, but you talk about your styles and what you look for, and has that evolved a lot over the years from when you first started making wines to how you're making wines today?
Yes, it has. I think the principle has been the same, but as I've evolved, it's been less, with the philosophy that less is more.
Right. So you mean less additions and less.
Fewer additions. I like selecting the yeasts. I try. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different yeast you can use to ferment these grapes with, and each one will bring out a nuance or a character in the wine that won't be with another yeast. That's the best way I can describe it.
Did you do trials to see which yeast you like by any chance?
I do constantly do trials and then find one you liked, and then some that you didn't like, and that included native fermentations as well. And I always preferred the expression of the fruit on the best selected yeasts are chosen, and then you eliminate. You try all these yeasts, and you get down to a couple of yeast. But the main yeast I use from rock palm on the red is a yeast that originates in rock palm, and it's called RP15. Glamorous name.
That's what the RP stands for.
Yeah. and then
all sorts of things.
And that was isolated in the Rock Pile vineyard, which is the highest vineyard in the Rock Pile AVA, and possibly the crown jewel of the Rock Pile appellation. It's at 2,000 feet on a very steep, rocky ridge, and all the vineyards we select are actually east-facing, so they're not getting the full glare of the afternoon sun. So the fruit doesn't get as ripe as quickly, and tends to maintain a little bit more acidity, and the fruit profile is very, very different in that wine when it gets riper. The riper the fruit, it makes very wonderful wines, but this is another one of my analogies, is that it's if you pick an earlier ripeness, there are characters that are going on in that wine that are lost as it gets riper. So I'd liken it to cooking steak. If you go to rare or medium rare, there's lots of character there that is completely gone when it's well done. A similar an analogy, so it's not quite true, but it means there's different things that the texture's completely different, and the fruit is much more linear and vibrant and fresh, more red fruit and dark fruit, blue and red fruit. So you get these in the Zinfandel raspberry, blueberry, and then there's a floralness that you can capture at that level of ripeness too. I think is one of those characters that it isn't as captured as easily if the fruit's riper. And I think that's a special character. That's for me that unique floralness in line with the minerality that we talked about. Is something I think is extraordinarily special to be able to capture in a vineyard. You know, we can get that fruit riper, and it makes delicious wines, wonderful, powerful, very sexy wines that enjoy sitting around and having conversation. You know, but this is a little different, and I think makes it better with food on the table. And
well, it's super cool you're doing that in a time where wine writers like the big high alcohol overripe. I mean,
well, they used to.
obviously,
I think they're
it's
getting a
going
little
back
better.
the other way, but it sounds
it?
like you.
I've never changed that, and
That's great.
it's been a long slog. I haven't been the darling of the scorers, I can promise you. You know, I think they're more kind now to the wines than they used to be, but they're probably better. They're probably more fine than they were, and I think part of that less oak, and then fine tuning that oak is also important. But again, to those that don't know, that the barrels come from a lot of places in the north hemisphere. We have American oak, and that can come from Missouri or the Appalachian Mountains, or there's several different forests that they come from, and they taste different when you make a barrel from them. American oak has a character that isn't my favourite in the wine. I think it just...
Do you use American oak?
No American. No, American zero. Just because it can bring a character that I think gets in the way of something that may be there that I'm searching for.
So do you use Hungarian or are you Prussian or French?
100%
All
French.
Wow,
Oh.
that's expensive.
It's like buying a sofa.
It is.
And keeping that new oak, you want to capture that. The barrels, it's just not the flavour of the barrel that influences the wine, but it's the character of the barrel. There's something that it brings. We're very lucky to have oak and winemaking together, because there is something extraordinary that happens. The tannins refine, the wine evolves very slowly because of the oxygen going through that wood into the wine at a very, very slow rate. And that lets that wine evolve very, very slowly, very gently, and creates another whole facet of characters that otherwise wouldn't be there. And if you have too much oak, then I think some of that character is again masked by...
He corrected himself again.
I'm going back to England next week, so I'm trying to
practicing.
Working up.
You sound like a yak.
Yeah. Did you go through the same sort of narrowing down with your oak your barrel selections
Yes.
that you've done with yeast? You kind of go, okay, these are the coopers that I like best for this particular varietal, or
it is that what you actually end up paying a lot more for is actually less impact. So the barrels I choose are the most expensive, super tight grain, predominantly medium toast. And so the actual influence of that barrel to the wine is much, much less. So it's all part of that less.
That's true.
Less.
And with the tighter grain, you get
and you get this much more. It's that texture that you get from the best barrels toasted by the artists that make these barrels.
Yeah.
And I even got lucky enough have been lucky enough to work with a cooper and design my own barrel.
Very nice.
Which was it's just.
So the cooper gives you your selection.
Well, he's a Bordeaux cooperage, and Dominique Millet is the gentleman's name. And I was buying his Bordeaux barrels, and they were my favourite, and they was only producing 100, very, very few. And they became my favourite for the Rock Pile Cabernet. And so I'd meet him, and we'd go out to lunch, and I went to Bordeaux a couple of times, and I said, what we should really do is, where I am, we're in Pinot and Chardonnay country, so how about we make a barrel for Chardonnay and Pinot. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And several trials we tasted barrels that were specifically designed in Burgundy usually for those varieties. And so we worked over, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 years. We worked at different toast levels, different regimes, and came up with this sort of custom toasting,
Wow, that's very cool.
which again, very little influence. So it's all tight grain for this particular barrel.
And barrels are made by hand still. It's a
They are. There's a little more
well, I mean, there's
mechanism
equipment,
to it, but it's still someone's there
like very-
doing the deal.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's a very artisan, handcrafted
it's extraordinary
process.
skill
So
job.
it's amazing that
And we've
Yeah,
made
that-
these barrels, and up until very recently, I actually sold them, or tried to sell them. I wasn't very good at selling them, but you go meet winemakers and talk about it. I go, well, by the way, did I tell you? No,
yeah, but you can also bring your wine, which is nice.
Yes. And so it was a double toast. So it was a very, very low, super low temperature fire for a long time, and then maybe 3 hours, and then we moved it from there into a kiln for another 3 hours at another low temperature. And what we did is, the only thing where I can really liken to is like caramelized onions, because you have that extra layer of sweetness coming from the barrel, and then that less oak influence, but all these textures and more subtle aromatics and texture.
You know, this is the first interview I've ever done where my mouth is watering and I'm hungry
Yeah.
because your descriptions are so
Yeah.
appetizing and
Thank
eloquent.
you. Well, thank you.
I mean, truly.
You're very kind.
Now, George's glass is empty.
Oh,
Well, I thought we were going to try something
Yeah,
else.
I think we can move on to the
you
next one.
did,
That's good.
and
That's what I'm here for.
I'm saying it's George, not me.
You got-
My glass
It's a
is
hole in
almost
my glass.
empty. No, I meant in a positive way. It's time to move on to the next.
it matches your leg.
Okay, so I think we have a bottle shot of this as well.
This is the 2020 Sauvignon Blanc from our estate in Russian River Valley from the Grand View Vineyard. I think this is 20, was that say 19? Can't see. Either or, they're both drinking deliciously.
It's 19.
It's 19. So the vineyard, this is my favourite vineyard to work with, one of my favourite wines to make, and certainly my favourite wine to drink.
Oh, is it?
It
And
really is.
it's your favorite wine to make as well.
The vineyard, I love being in the vineyard. So in the Sauvignon Blanc, probably more than any other varietal, but I could be corrected on that, and I would like to be, if I'm wrong, is that you can change the flavour in the wine by changing the amount of sunlight the clusters see during the growing season. The less sunlight that the grapes see, so in the more shade, more herbaceous, more perhaps herbal, and can even go into jalapeno, or even the
And then you're talking basically about the amount of leaves that are kept on
how much
plants.
sunlight
The canopy,
that cluster
right?
sees.
Yeah.
Canopy,
Yes.
canopy management. So you can work with the canopy, and you, if Sauvignon Blanc vines, depending on where the soil is and how vigorous they are, could, without our interception, never see the sunlight. And if you made a wine just from that, it would be extremely, what I call pungent, grassy, almost over the top jalapeno, herbal, maybe some minerality, but so as that sees more sunlight, you go into the more sort of citrus, apple tones. When you get much more sunlight, more in the tropical tones. So in between is the floral, you can capture some floral qualities. So this is my vineyard, I'm in charge of it. And so I will manage the canopy in the vineyard differently throughout the growing season. So some will have full shade, and then maybe I'll slowly throughout the season remove some of those leaves. So by the time maybe 2 weeks before harvest, it's seeing filtered light. Maybe some of it sees full sunlight, and then some starts off with seeing more light and more shaded, and I'll pull a few more leaves from there. So I'm changing and evolving the flavours in the wine, but you don't want that pungent character to be one of the players. You want it to be chorus or something.
So are you doing this just by look, or by experience, or by taste? Are you out there tasting berries, or is it a combination of all the above?
Experience and really experimenting and making specific wines from areas within the vineyard that had more shade or more sunlight, and seeing what that comes, and then understanding the vineyard and where it's good to do it and not so. So this is 20 years of refining this process, and this is the best I can do.
It's delicious.
But I think that's an interesting point. It's like a lot of people, I think, can't really wrap their heads around, is that you get, one shot a year, right, to try something. And then you get, 5 years in, you've only had 5 different little,
chances.
so it's it says a lot. Like, I mean, it takes a lot of time, the years and years and years before you really become, where you would say, intimately familiar with this particular vineyard and how to farm.
And being in there, you can work with the same vineyard, which I think is also very important. You get to know what there is there, particularly with Sauvignon Blanc.
Right.
Fermentation, temperature, yeast in particular, and then you have all those other influences. But this is stainless steel without malolactic fermentation, which I think is the purest form of presentation of Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed some that have had some malolactic and some oak influence, but I always come back to this style.
I agree. This is what I'm partial to. Yes. It's delicious.
It
is the perfect balance of, it has very good varietal integrity.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
It still has a little bit of the tropicality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
And the idea is that if you that wine, you've got to really work with the complexity in the vineyard, and then in the winery too, I'll try and have as many fermentations as possible, using different yeasts and keeping those specific parts of the vineyard separate. Different fermentation temperatures, astonishingly enough, create different floral qualities in the finished wine. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
So I'm sorry. So are you saying that do you have this in separate fermenters, and you're doing
As many as I can.
Wow, that's really. So you tie up all the tanks for this one.
I bought my own stainless steel. Our winery burned down, so I used to, I designed tanks specifically for fermenting Sauvignon Blanc in. Very skinny, so would be less loss of aromatics, and then fermentation temperature, I think, is extraordinarily important.
And so you'll have your tanks at different fermentation temperatures?
There is. You want some to get slightly warm, so maybe 65 or 70, but just bring it up and then bring it down. It creates different characters.
This is a very time-consuming wine.
But it is, but it's
delicious.
I love it. I go to that tank and I'll smell it and I'll get those senses. So yeah, she's all peach today, boys. Or and you come back another day and it's pineapple. All of a sudden, it's even jalapeno. Some of them at some points they're like, ooh, fire up the grill. We're having tacos.
Do you use the same yeast for all the tanks, or do you?
No.
Wow, so you really go for complexity with temperature and
Complexity.
vineyard.
To make one very clean, simple wine.
And how many phases? Sorry.
It varies from maybe 500, something like maybe 1,000 something.
Because then you bring it all together, right? Then you're in the lab blending up.
No, well, sometimes we make 2 different wines, but usually one.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll make 2 different.
Sometimes we've made 2. We make one for wholesale market and then one for the winery. And that's exactly the same vineyard. Yeah. It's just it'll be subtly different.
I do that
Not
with my
necessarily better.
Sauv Blanc and my Chardonnay.
Yeah, good.
And it's sort of like
Lovely
with
Chardonnay.
Thank you. And with the wholesale market, I tend to go for something that's a little more consumer driven than what I saw in the tasting room.
Yeah, I mean, but that Chardonnay movement has been extraordinary. You think of all of the guises that Chardonnay comes under. You've got that old California style, which I think is pretty unique to California, where we got a lot of oak, we got a lot of malolactic, we got a lot of these characters. These are very rich, powerful, sort of voluptuous wines. And that's just one display of Chardonnay, but and they're fruity as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think captures perhaps the best that Chardonnay can showcase. And we have our Burgundy to give us our sort of high standard to look at. We'll never be able to make a Burgundy here, but we can, and this becomes part of the less is to create a style that isn't that, but has similar to textures. I think is what's special about Burgundy. So floral qualities, and the texture is just exquisite. And you can do that. We can achieve salty in that, and that's through the use of oak and malolactic fermentation. And I think that's important.
Well, back to this wine, it's very elegant.
Yeah.
It still has substance.
Thank you. Good. I like that.
Yeah. Do you design the labels as well?
I do not. That is actually.
So you just design tanks and barrels.
Tanks and barrels, yeah,
That's
and
all.
wines,
Exactly.
and wines. I mean, you say you're a wine maker. That's a physical process. Playing with the nuances of that fermentation, that you're designing, whether you change the temperature of the tank or use a different yeast or a barrel, you're designing a wine with that finished wine goal in mind. And I'm sure you said, I'd like this, I like that wine there. That'd be nice to try and achieve some nuances there. So you find a vineyard that may be similar. And then you think, well, let's try this and that, and this and that, and this and that. You keep them all separate through the sort of first spring. And then you taste them again and you go, maybe not. And then you go, oh yeah, ooh, that's good. I like that. And then you work out, go and look at your notebooks and see what you did with that barrel, all done blind, and so that keeps you honest. So you're not pretending that you like something,
Yes.
And you I know what this is. No, it's not. And and you have this perceived perception of what you're going to taste, and it keeps you humble and honest. So. All right, well maybe that wasn't what I thought it was, so we'll maybe 86 that off the next time we harvest, and so the next harvest you won't do that, and you'll invite another style or another way to do something in, and you fine tune it. And
Do you keep you keep notes on it?
I did. I had 20 years of notebooks, and then that fire came through and took them.
That's terrible.
So it's all knocking around in closed and
listening.
unclosed doors up here, so flapping around, flapping around. I forget more.
They're safe. So I have another quick question. I know you do some wine judging as well, but outside of judging wine, so you're tasting 100 wines in a particular day. Do you check out other people's wines often?
I do. My cellar is. I drink a lot of other people's wines. I'm probably member to like 3 or 4 different wine clubs of local friends.
So you're always trying and seeing what other people check out different styles.
They'll have to look on my POS system to see if you're in there.
Yeah. Just trying to go get in the system.
You need to charm me.
Get our fact checker to see if you're a Selby Wine Club member.
And especially like the wines of young people that are doing something a little different.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, is so brave.
It knocks Selby off the list.
I'm sure you're doing something that excites. The Grenache
no,
Blanc, you said about the Grenache Blanc. So there we are, you are there. And I'm dying to taste it. Maybe we'll have a break and we'll send you off for a bottle.
No, it is. It is exciting to taste young-sided winemakers' wines. Now, I understand. I haven't seen it, but I understand you have some interesting hobbies.
Well, golf.
Where are we going with golf?
Golf with George.
I've heard. Well, everybody wants to know about the personality of the winemaker.
Wow.
Okay, here we are.
Yeah.
We are looking at Dan.
That's me at work.
Very
With that
serious.
very serious-looking face there.
Yes.
This is that was a sculpture. This is another interesting. That is a sculpture at Paradise Ridge. That is called Cooper's Crest.
That is very cool.
And it's made out of old tools
Oh, look at that.
were made to repair barrels.
Look at that.
In 2018, I got this random. That is a white-tailed kite.
Did you
Which is
take
quite
that
rare.
photo?
I did not. Which is quite rare, and we have a nesting pair at Paradise Ridge, which I think we farm organically, and I think this may be one of those things that takes my heart, that if we weren't farming organically and maintaining the estate in a certain way, maybe that bird would be less likely to visit us.
Interesting.
Now, did the bird disappear during the fires and come back?
No, it's only appeared. So here are the dogs. We work with a wonderful family called the Rainbow Grazing Company, and we graze our vineyards with sheep. These are the two. There's a Pyrenees and a Pyrenees cross, I think. But correct me, and Houdini and.
Did the Pyrenees help with
so
sheep management?
That's right. So they're really guard dogs and stop the sheep becoming a buffet.
Right.
Oh, so they're protecting them.
Right, yeah, exactly. And we work with Houdini is the older of the dogs, and he's known as Houdini because he can get out, and he does, and he likes to wander. And
Can we talk about the sculpture again?
yes, of course.
But I want to go back to the dogs, but Mike said he could go back to it.
That's got a good story behind it.
So, how large is that sculpture?
It's probably 12 feet.
Wow.
So those are Cooper's hammers, you can see those have seen a lot of action. So randomly, I get this email in 2018. My husband was the head Cooper at the Christian Brothers in Modesto during the 50s and 60s. And he's retired and he just passed away, and he left these tools. Would you like to buy some? Show me pictures, and
So did you make the sculpture?
I did not. I worked with him.
Did you take this machine? No, I did not. Did you make that? I did not. Did you decide to say? I did not. You gotta stop out. He doesn't do that.
So anyhow, sorry, the back of it. So this woman sends me pictures of these old Cooper's tools, and there's four big boxes of them like this. And she gives me a number. I go, I'll be there at this weekend. So my son and I went down there. These things, they weigh a ton. So I end up with these 4 boxes of old Cooper's tools. Magnificent.
So cool.
And there they sat in my office, not knowing, and I just wanted to keep them. And I still have a few myself. And then when Paradise got rebuilt after the fire, my wife Sonny said, well, we need to have something that's special behind the bar, and so she came up with the idea of making a sculpture with these tools, which is brilliant. And we happen to know this wonderful artist called Monty, first name Monty, last name Monty.
Keep it simple.
And he builds these extraordinary sculptures using things that people don't use anymore, and he doesn't clean them up, he just sort of restores them to their natural way, and he built that over several months. He built that sculpture, and it's a trip.
That's cool.
It is. Okay, and I interrupted you when you were talking about these fabulous dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Houdini.
And Athena, thank scheme. I hope that's right. And we work with this wonderful team of shepherdesses, and they bring the sheep in and they look after them and do everything. And we move. What we do is it's called mob grazing. So there'll be a lot of sheep in a very small area, so they'll eat everything, and so sometimes they'll move them every day.
Do you have like portable pens?
They do. They have these fences that they move around.
Do you make the pens?
I do. Now you mention it.
He does make fences.
Wow, that's really a cool concept.
And so what we do, we nub down all that first growth of weeds and grasses in the vineyard down to nothing. Some things they don't need. And once they've finished with the vineyard, it just about starts to get bud break, which is sort of March, beginning of March. And then we have to move them out because they love those little juicy, succulent,
Well,
tender.
Michael just mentioned to me, why don't we look at the product of the lamps? And here we go.
Well, this is a little dark for some of you. Be warned, not for everybody.
Very clever, Mike.
So we harvested one of these lambs, and in another life, before I was in the wine department, I was a butcher. So we took the lamb and broke it down. Actually, we broke it down into French cuts, which is a little different than other cuts. And then, so that was it, broken down into its raw. So we got the legs on the left, breasts, neck, shoulders, saddle, and then the cutlets, which, and then I broke it down so that it would be very easy to use for food. So everything was boned out pretty much. We had the different cuts. So the shoulder was braised very, very slowly by a good friend, Dan Barwick, which we should definitely mention.
Yeah,
And Dan
fabulous.
is a rock star chef. friend
DL
of
Catering.
DL Catering. He is a local legend in the Outskirts.
Yes.
And we came up together. So I went to his kitchen and I took the lamb up there. I broke it down, and then we were talking about how we were going to do things, and then we had a luncheon, which George came to, and I think there were eight or nine of us there for lunch, and we consumed most of that lamb.
It was delicious.
How many people were there?
9 of us, I think.
Nine?
Nine good friends.
It was so
Michael
good,
says
so much
16.
wine, and they did so many different sort of.
I think there were
sliders.
but the meatballs, that was kind of
That was good.
which is sort of done in a sort of Turkish Moroccan kind of.
That was good.
With yogurt and mint and
And then little lollipop.
and we had the cutlets, and then we had 3 different dishes after that,
Yeah.
which were all different forms of.
Wow.
Some
over
were
the top.
braised and some were roasted.
Yeah.
And we had at it.
Keep getting
Quite
more
a
and
bit
more
of wine.
hungry through this.
Yeah, it was delicious.
It's all about eating and drinking.
Yes.
It is. We do care about eating and drinking.
This
In our
girl did not
industry.
come from yogurt.
You have to build a temple.
That's right. That's right.
And I learned something. I did not know you were a butcher for a while, or learned a little bit about how to butcher.
Much to the horror of my parents, I left school at about 16, maybe 17, and became a butcher's boy. And so I learned I was doing mainly counter service, but I was taught how to butcher up animals. I never really got to breaking down a whole cow, but that's a skill I took to Harrods, and this is probably why I got the job there. And I sort of specialised in breaking these animals down the way that the French would do it, which is basically seaming out the different muscles within the lamb.
Wow, you have such an interesting background in food and wine. It's fabulous.
Yeah, and this is a skill you can take anywhere. If someone shoots a deer and they go, I got the deer, do you want me to butcher that for you? They tell you that story.
What a handy thing to have around.
It is, and then I still have my roll of knives that I use to do that. It's good to do it. I mean, it really, as we're finding out, meat is made in huge factories throughout the planet, and I think that's a way that we've come to that we've lost that personal contact with what we eat, and I think animals exemplifies that probably more than anything else. There used to be the local farm and the local butcher. It's all gone now. Everything, to use out there, the animal does not live in plastic. That happens between its day in the pasture. So the lambs that we farm on the property live a perfect life.
Oh,
They
of
live
course they
in
do.
animal heaven. We move them and feed them the most succulent of everything, and they have one bad day.
One really bad day.
But you even
But
say
they don't
when
know they're going to have a bad day. It happens, and then we eat it and enjoy it. And
That's the slow
next
food
minute,
concept. You honor the animal.
we did it with the animal, and that's important.
We have one more wine that we did not try, and I'm not suggesting that
We might need a
Have to.
corkscrew for that.
Oh,
Is anyone on set what a corkscrew
Oh, yeah.
is?
Where can I check on taste?
You know what? I can grab a corkscrew. Would you
No,
like
no.
to? Oh no, I can.
You have a guest?
Do you want me to go get it?
I'll go get it.
Okay, I'm not going to leave the set.
Yeah, you
No,
can
you stay here.
I'll
I'm feeling your. Yeah, just go in there.
Did you-
Yes.
So this is a Pinot Noir. I'm going to snag a little bit more of that because it's my favourite. So my little marketing here, if you have a bottle of this wine in your fridge, on your way home, you know there's a friend waiting for you. And when you do get home, it is the most delicious thing to greet you, cold, refreshing, comforting.
And all year round.
And wine is one of also it is comfort. We probably go to where we live probably 5 or 6 restaurants more than any others. Why do you go to those? And it's because it's comfort. The food's going to be good. That you're going to be treated the way you want to be treated. The price is the right price, and the price is very important too. All of those comforts. We don't have to do the dishes, and so that gives us a level of comfort, and that's what we spend our luxury. Wine can also do that. It can give you that same comfort. No surprises. You get exactly what you want, exactly when you want it, and boom.
Yes, please.
I've done all the hard work,
Don't recognize that. No, you have done all the hard work.
and just to enjoy it, and I love it as much as anyone else.
Well, don't you? I mean, the biggest compliment I think a winemaker has is when a chef does a dinner around your wines, because we've already made the wines; they're there.
Mm-hmm.
The chef is choosing.
It is a trip, and the wines, invariably taste better than you ever thought they could.
Oh, I know.
If they're good.
That's right. I always start by going, this chef is going to make me look really good here.
Yeah,
It's the food don't-
it is.
But a wine like this, the Sauvignon Blanc has broad food pairing
Because it's that acidity,
capabilities.
and goes with a whole slew of different things. But I'd like to call it the sorbet of wines.
Oh yeah.
You can be having a big lunch like we were having, or a dinner where you're drinking a lot of red wine, eating lots of rich food. You bring out one of these babies, and it's like a sorbet. You drink this, and then the next red wine is refreshed. Your palate is cleansed.
And thank you. And do we have here's our bottle shot from the Paradise Ridge.
2018
Thanks so much.
Vineyard Select. The vineyard is Walter's
Oh,
Vineyard.
thank you.
Is Walter's Vineyard.
Yes, I'm sorry. The white pants are causing problems on the set.
Of stress.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
So when I'm changing
More
Cut down the side of the glass, that's going to get you.
when I'm changing from one wine to another, it's very nice sometimes to give the wine a rinse. And even better news than that is that geraniums love it.
They do. They just thrive on it.
So this is from our estate.
I love
then so this is picked. I don't know what the alcohol is, but it could be 12.8. You know, we've actually made them from this vineyard under 13, but this may be 13A, 13C.
Well, I know, and you never.
I know,
and I
it's only meant to be close.
Yeah, and you print your labels.
And this varietal 2 is very, very sensitive to the when you pick it west, right, the aromatics are vastly different.
Wow.
Or vastly different.
Vastly. Yeah, you give the program. Get ready for your trip. Huh?
But you get these floral qualities. I mean, it's almost a potpourri of maybe dried flowers, maybe rose petals, but maybe like fantasize a little. But
It almost has like a little bit of a lavender.
Yeah, these floral notes
Very thin.
and then again as many different fermentations as I can with this making the same wine. This is predominantly from the 777 clone, and it grows on the estate, which is on the far eastern fringes of the Russian River Valley in the foothills. This vineyard is at about 600 feet above, and we overlooking the Santa Rosa Plain in the Russian River, and during the later part of the growing season, that valley fills up with fog, and so we are above that fog, sitting in the sunshine. Maybe at 8 o'clock in the morning, we'll be in sunshine, but we'll still have that cool air temperature from that fog. And then, this is probably the most unique and bizarre thing about this vineyard, is that as it warms up, that fog lifts, and the breezes from the ocean push that fog across our vineyards. So we can be cooler at 10 o'clock than we were at 9 o'clock.
Interesting.
That's really
Which
that's
has
unusual.
Possibly the most unique
That
microclimate.
is very, very unique.
And that preserves the natural acidity.
When you must get fabulous hang time.
Well, it ripens pretty quick. It's always the first fruit we harvest. But I don't think the hang times, because I'm picking much sooner than a lot of people. So we've even picked this vineyard in July.
In July.
In July.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Well, and it's beautiful. It's a lovely.
Not
wine.
the whole vineyard, but maybe we'll pick 6 bins or something, just to get people in the mood. Get a fermentation going.
again, it's like a warm up.
Yeah, and then we can baby it too.
And then it goes into one of your designer barrels.
It does. This went into one of my designer barrels.
I love the. I really like the oak treatment from a flavor.
Well, I wish I could sell you some.
You're out of the, out
Anyone
of the
from
now.
Millet watching this program, Susie is ready.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a new buyer of Malay.
And then the other thing, they're all fermented, all finished up all apart from the Bordeaux varietals, everything's finished in puncheons. So either 400 litre or 500 litre, where you're getting a greater wine to oak ratio, so less influence from that barrel. The all tight grain again.
You're spoiled. You've got
When
some
will you
pretty
do
cool
that?
stuff going on at your
Yeah.
winery.
When will you do that? When will you move them out of the smaller barrels into the punches?
Well, the Chardonnay, Pinot, Grenache, and Syrah, Zinfandel are all aged in French oak puncheons,
Oh, okay.
of which is maybe 20% new.
Okay.
And in fact, I often will I buy new barrels, specific new barrels, but I don't want that new oak, so I will actually loan that to a friend to use for their wine, a trusted friend,
Yeah.
for the first season, or maybe he'll just ferment them all, or just have 1 year of Pinot in them, and then I'll get that barrel back the next year, and it's taken that edge off. It's like that. It's taken the new car smell. Is another one of my analogies. New oak has this very special, unique character, but it can have too much of a lead. Sometimes with Pinot, when you're trying to make it in a sort of more delicate style,
Yeah, nothing's
but
better
you want
than
that texture.
1-year-old barrels.
1, 2 year old. But I try their puncheons, and I used to on the Chardonnay, we'd never actually rinse the barrels properly, so we'd empty the wine and the lead, just dump the leads, quick rinse, and then we gas them, and then we cold rinse it quickly, and then put the juice into it, so that it's wearing a lot of that character from the previous year. So all that, the yeast that was in that barrel of the year, will have this, be all awakening up, and then it has this wonderful lag phase, which is the time that the yeast wakes up till it starts consuming sugar and making the fermentation. And during that period, I believe there are these extraordinary characters that can be had, and I think that's why, part of why people use native fermentations, because there's a plethora of yeasts in there, and they all sit there for a long time, working out, who's going to be, and they're all edging their way and creating these special qualities, and maybe more so because there's lots of them happening, and then one becomes dominant, or two or three, and then one may take the first part of fermentation, and then it dies, and then another one kicks in. So you're creating all these different levels of complexity. But I'm already doing that with all these different fermentations with different yeast. I think maybe is part of why I prefer that. I just don't know exactly. I've spent time with winemakers that only ferment with native yeast, and we've explained, and I love their wines and enjoyed them. It's also very brave, because there's you've got 100 yeast, and 80 of them are going to be your friend, and 20 will have a good chance of messing you up.
Yeah, there's a chance. Well, now back to how people can get your wines.
Yes.
I assume you do have a wine club, correct?
We do, of course.
And is it like a case a year, or do you have different levels that they can go to your website?
There is. The best way to do it is to call us up and come and visit the winery, and you can really taste these wines yourself. And we have a crew of wonderful people that will guide you through these flights. They've all been trained and taught all of the details I talked about today by me, so they know these wines very intimately, and they can help you enjoy the wine more because of the setting and their information they can give you. And then most of the time we serve the wines with food, and that, as we just already discussed, just takes everything to the next level. We never used to serve wine with food. It was only more recently, maybe it's in the last 10 years, that's become a normal experience. Sit down and have food, taste of food with your wine, and I think it's becoming more of a norm, which I think is great. But more so for the wines that I'm making is because it makes them come alive. And if you don't, they're still there and they're still pleasurable, but in that food experience, then these things just come alive and create this whole another level of dimensions that are not there until, a lot of it is animal fat, whether it's cheese or meat, solid meat. It's very good. Less of that. Food before was like a basket of bread, right? It's probably the worst thing you could have, just to soak up the wine in your belly. But we have these different saloons from our friends at the Genuine Meat Company. Excuse me, Pete Segatio.
Oh yeah.
Who's from the Segatio family?
Yeah, Pete's actually joined us on this.
Yeah, he's
an amazing guy.
Taking everything I said about meat and its provenance and respecting the animal and presenting it as everyone would hope it should be done. He does, and he has a butcher shop here in Healdsburg. And if you're in Healdsburg or in Sonoma County,
definitely.
You should definitely visit that. There are a lot of very good butchers also in Sonoma County.
He also ferments his own salumi.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's darn good, and that makes these wines taste just.
Well, I usually have something. I apologize. I feel like a bad hostess. Yes. Next time you come, we'll have some.
You usually have some journeyman.
I usually do.
Just a quick comment on I think, in the old days you'd come up and maybe you get like a little bit of bread, like stale bread to have.
Cracker maybe. Yeah.
And I think for people that are, haven't been to wine country in a while, it's a different experience now. I mean, there's so much more of this sit-down type experience where you're getting to do like these little mini pairings, and it's just, for me, it's like makes the experience so much better, and it really helps hammer home the whole concept of food and wine pairing and how,
Yeah, I agree 100%.
you know, when it's done properly, it makes everything better. The
And
food's
for you
better.
out there that are coming to wine country, it is always best to prepare and know where you're going to visit and give them a call
Yeah.
and book a tasting, because they're not always you know, that we fill up in a way.
It's different now.
Someone told me the other day, I can't get into your winery. What can you do for me? I go, outside of doing a private tasting with me, which will
And how do people get a private tasting with you, Dan?
you have to like me and be my
I
friend.
came at the golf course, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. You have to pay for a round.
And I like, and it's just like talk. I'll talk to you just like I'm talking to you now.
Yeah.
I tell the same stories. They all have their own way of getting to where I get that little piece, and how the wines came from, where they came from. There's a lot of hard work to actually do less, which I think turns out to be more in the glass.
The gloss.
Lots.
Well, this has been such an enjoyable experience.
I've loved it too.
And your descriptors and your passion comes through.
Thank you.
And I think your background, especially in food,
It is, and I've worked in
it shows
kitchens
in the outcome of your wines.
and food has been part of my life since I was 16, and somehow I've managed to make a career of it. Now I've got the king job, you know,
It's
getting
good to be
paid to
king.
drink. You know, that's really it.
Always
So
good to be king.
there's a goal for everybody out there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
And
Good to see you.
I would
Good to see you,
recommend
George.
that anybody who's coming to Sonoma County get a reservation at Paradise Ridge. You should do it early, because it sounds like you get pretty busy.
They are, and I think not just Paradise Ridge, but any winery that you're going to visit in Sonoma County, they're all offering these much more sophisticated and kinder experiences, I think is a way to put it perhaps. And if you let them know, then you'll get the right treatment. I mean, we're trying to accommodate everybody, but if you turn up, there's a less of a chance that you're going to get the day you wanted. And I think pre-planning and just picking up that phone, or even I think you can do most things online now, and you can also buy wine online. You can, next time I come, we'll send you a little selection of wines. You can drink a lot.
Well, and if you go to Paradise Ridge, it epitomizes drink the view.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Absolutely. Well, George, thank you for being here as well.
I'm always happy to be here.
Michael
Especially
Deloche.
VIP guests like Dan Barwick.
Yes, very big VIP guest, and fabulous Michael Deloche, who is in the background handling everything.
Fact checking.
It's the back of house that makes it happen.
Yes.
That's right.
That's
It's the
true.
back of the house. So it's been a great day. Thank you again. And until next Wednesday, enjoy wine, enjoy life.
I'll do my best.